My friends, I'm not given to wild, unsupported statements. And I tell you that we must evacuate this planet immediately.
Jor-El, be reasonable.
Once there was a civilization, much like ours, but with a greater intelligence, greater powers, and a greater capacity for good. In one tragic moment, that world was destroyed. But there was one survivor.
Now, wouldn't that beat all get out?
Because of the wisdom and compassion of Jor-El, because he knew the human race had the capacity for goodness, he sent us his only son. His name is Kal-El. He will call himself Clark Kent. But the world will know him as Superman. This year, Superman brings you the gift of flight. Superman, the movie.
Silver Screen Superman. This is Silver Screen Superman. I'll watch every feature that's starring that creature from the planet Krypton, even the one with John Cryer.
Can you read my mind? Do you see that I'm wearing pink underwear? Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another thrilling adventure of Silver Screen Superman, where today I watched, for the first time in years, I watched Superman, the movie from 1978. Back when a time when I was 2 years young. I was very cool 2 years old. I was, I had a leather jacket. It was a leather onesie, It was very, I think the term my grandfather used to use was funky. I was very funky as a child. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm sitting outside right now by a tree. You can hear nature around me, but it's still too early in the season. I know when movie month gets here and I sit outside, all the time you hear the friggin' air conditioner go off. But I don't think we're going to have the air conditioner be a problem today. I say that, famous last words. It is May the 5th. I'm looking at my thing. May the 15th be with you. And so we're like, what are we, 16 days away from the beginning of movie month. But I wanted to get more of these out to the world before I dedicate June, year 8, to another 30 movies, 30 podcasts, and 30 days. And I wanted to do the same thing I did with all the Batman movies and watch all the Superman movies. And there are less Superman movies. Oh my God, there's bugs. There are less Superman movies, and some of these movies are going to be overlapping. And then there's a couple I'm adding in there that you're going to say, wait, Superman was in that? Wait, is that a Superman movie? Wait, does that count? And I actually, as I said, I wrote a tweet a couple weeks ago. I don't care. I made the rules. I mean, this isn't a contest. This isn't some official thing. I'm adding it to the list. And I guess technically some of the things I will be watching were not released in theater, as far as I know, or they haven't been released in theaters yet. But again, I don't care. I want to watch things again and again and again. So I thought I'd get as many as I can get done in May. And I've gotten 2. And we're halfway through May. But there's still going to be, there's still a couple weeks for me to, at least get through these Christopher Reeve movies. This is the one that when I watch this, I think this is Superman. So I have another podcast called Reaction Comics. Some of you I know have checked it out. Not many, but some people have. And I'm reading, the old classic original Action Comics where Superman is Clark Kent. Lois Lane does not like him. They work at the Daily Star, not the Daily Planet. Superman's kind of a jerk. They mention a planet. They mention, I don't even know if they mention Ma and Pa Kent. They have like one panel talking about them. They might have mentioned Smallville. I'm not even sure if Smallville came up. I'm about a year into it. So I'm about 12 issues in, 12 episodes up on the podcast. So Superman has been alive in the world, in the real world for a year. And it's very different than the Superman we will come to know. But this movie is that Superman that like is the comforting goody two shoes person that we know. And it is so well done as far as Christopher Reeve's, bumbling, I don't know, Lois, to then he kind of just takes off. They show one scene where, I know you talk about, Superman, the big thing is Clark Kent puts his glasses on and that's it. And it isn't quite that. I mean, that's, the gist of it, but, it's the slouching, it's the being like a coward. It's just the different inflection, the different way you walk, the different way you talk, to the point where they wouldn't even look at you to think that you are Superman. They wouldn't take a moment to go, wow, he has quite the jawline. Check that out. Like, that man is stunning. But there's one scene where, Superman visits Lois, then he leaves, and then Clark comes, he's like, hey, I'm here for my date. And he takes his glasses off for a second and chuckles when Lois goes away, and he just kind of stands up a little square, and he's like, Lois, I want to tell you something. But then he changes his mind. He's like, we're going to be late for our date. And they head off. But this, to me, this was the Superman that I grew up with. Before even knowing the comics, I knew Superman, the movie. Richard Donner, of course, from Lethal Weapon fame, from French Connect. He did French Connect. No, that's William Friedkin. He did The Goonies. I feel like he did another. Did you Taking a Pelham? No, that's crap. I don't know. Anyway, Richard Donner and Gene Hackman and Christopher Reeve. So Gene Hackman's the big name, the big get. Marlon Brando's the big name, the big get.
They get the top billing, but they're the supporting actors. I mean, really, it's Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder. And when you think about it, I mean, it's like 45 minutes before we even get to Christopher Reeve, technically. I didn't realize we got to Christopher Reeve a little earlier than that. So we got little baby Clark, little baby Kal-El. We get the beginning, kind of like the fact that nowadays movies are planned. You know, a lot of these movies are planned for sequels. You look at Marvel and what they do in planning these franchises. The Salkinds seem like they planned ahead when they were like, we're doing 2 Superman movies at the same time, filming them, and at the beginning of the first movie, we're already setting up the villains for the second movie. And they did a cool job with that, because once the second movie comes, you're going to be like, oh my God, those are the people from the beginning of the first movie. That's General Zod. And he said, you will kneel before me, and you and your ass. And like, so that was very well done. Plus, it was just like a cool kind of seeing Krypton come to life. I don't know if this version of Krypton was represented in the comics. You've seen so many different versions of how Krypton looks, or how the Kryptonians look. Here they're basically in like glow in the dark outfits. But it's the 70s, you know, and Marlon Brando is like showing off a killer haircut. He can't say Krypton, he says Krypton. And he was just like, I say Krypton, so it's going to be Krypton. And that's just, they're not going to tell Marlon Brando what to do. I mean, he was just reading what was probably written on other guys' backs. Like, he's notorious for like the script is like there so he can read it while he goes, which I have to say is a talent. As much as memorizing lines is, reading and making it sound like you know what you're doing is a great talent too. But he's just there, kind of like a pop, like, oh my God, that's Marlon Brando. And the fact that Mario Puzo did the story and was part of the screenplay team is pretty cool, because, of course, Puzo is the writer of The Godfather, and Marlon Brando is Don Corleone. So there's a cool little connection there. And they fit so much in the first 40 minutes. They have the, General Zod and the banishment to the Phantom Zone. They have Jor-El and the ruling council of Krypton, or whatever they call it, the High Council, and they're not believing Jor-El, knowing that Krypton is going to explode. They have Jor-El and I forget his Superman's mother's name. I'm so awful. They put little Kal-El, and he gives that little speech. The son becomes the father the son, and I'm just like, oh, I love that. And then they send off Clark off to space. Krypton explodes. Clark ages while he's getting this history lesson in the little spaceship. Then he lands with Ma and Pa Kent, and then boom, they fast forward like freaking 16 years. And he's a young man. There's this actor named Jeff East, who I don't know, and apparently I've never heard talk before, because I didn't realize that Christopher Reeve dubbed all of Jeff East's dialogue for continuity. I know they did a lot of makeup to make him look a little more like Superman. They put him in a wig. I don't know why they didn't just get a guy that looked more like Superman, a young Chris Reeve. I don't know. But I remember watching it just now. I remember 2 hours ago when I'm looking at this guy going, he kind of has a Superman looky, feel to it. Like, I could see him in the suit, and if this was nowadays a young Superman, they'd make him look like that. But then we got to Christopher Reeve, and 20 seconds into Christopher Reeve's Clark Kent and Superman, I was like, oh my God, not even close, buddy. Not even close, Jeff East. But what's funny is if you look up Jeff East now, I guess he's still a working actor, and you can go to his like a booking agent's website, and he's listed on it. And it says in the paragraph of his name, it says Jeff East landed the role of a lifetime when he was cast as Superman in Superman the movie. Now, I mean, I don't know if that's just that's a little spin city right there, a little spin doctoring. He was not cast as Superman. He was cast as young Clark Kent. He never became Superman, okay? He went to Krypton. He talked to the Marlon Brando hologram, and then apparently Marlon Brando or Jor-El sent him on his way. And I paid attention because it's been a long time. Because all I remember is he goes and then he leaves as Christopher Reeve, and he's there for 12 years of training. 12 years. Now, young Clark, his parents were already old when he was a little baby boy and he came to Smallville. They were even older when he was in high school, and Pa Kent died, and Martha Clark Kent had to leave, or Martha was alone, and then he left Martha, and then he goes to the Fortress of Solitude. He creates the Fortress of Solitude from that green crystal, and then he goes in, and Marlon Brando's like, this is my Marlon Brando. You have to. I'm not even going to bother. But he says 12 Earth years have passed. I'm sending you back to Earth. He's gone around the galaxy learning everything. He sends them back to Earth to watch over them. But don't get involved. Don't get what's the term? Don't push yourself. Don't change the course of history. Famous last words. And then he comes out as Clark Kent, and he's like, I'm Superman, and he flies away in his suit, even though he didn't have a name yet. Now, I watched, I don't care how many times I've heard the song, I don't care how many times I've heard the theme. I watched the whole, I didn't skip through the credits, even though the credits are just music and names, because that music is so good. And I put myself in the shoes of 1978. Imagine if you were a comic book fan and you're seeing this in 1978. You're being blown away. Now, everyone knows this theme, and this is the Superman theme, but you're hearing this for the first time. Same thing with Star Wars. You're hearing that for the first time, you were like, whoa, what is this? And it's now it's like part of pop history. But I like how they open it up with, they show an Action Comics. They didn't show Action Comics #1. And they talked about the Daily Planet. Well, again, it's the Daily Star in the early Action Comics. But I still thought that was pretty cool how they kind of showed the comic book. They showed the real Daily Planet, and then they flew off to Krypton with the music. Now, as great and as amazing as that Superman theme is, and it is amazing, the theme right after it, when they show the dome of Krypton, that almost gives me more chills. I don't know, it's weird to say what it's like. Bum, 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 bum. And I remember the last season of Smallville, there was a commercial, and they used that theme, and I just remember going, having chills and being like, oh my God. Smallville was, Superman Returns is kind of really Superman 5. They really tied you into this story. It's pretty much in the same quote-unquote universe. And Smallville also was in that world. As much as it wasn't, as much as it's its own thing, it still kind of fed off that Superman. From then on out, we see Man of Steel. We see a whole kind of new world, a new era. But those first 4 movies, the Supergirl movie, and the even Smallville, just kind of felt like they were in the same kind of, even though Smallville, again, is its own thing, different actors, different time, different period, but it still held on to that to the point where it used the music at the end. It's still that, it just came up a couple days ago. 10 years have passed since the last episode of Smallville. And that, I think, was the last time I put this movie on, which is disgusting. But I remember it was Smallville Day, I called it, and I watched the Superman movie. I think I watched a Blu-ray of a Superman movie that I won from the Atomic Geeks podcast. Then later that night, my buddy Dave came over. We got pizza. We watched the first episode of Smallville, followed by the finale. Again, this is not a Smallville podcast. I've talked about it a lot, but it kind of all ties into my love of soups. Superman. I also am a big fan of soup in general. Chicken noodle. It's a classic. It might be a bit of a generic choice, but it is wonderful. Back to Superman. We're 45 minutes in before we get to okay, now we're in a Superman adventure. Now we're at the Daily Planet. Now we're seeing Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, Clark Kent. We see Lex Luthor. We find out he's got some kind of plan that has to do with real estate. And Clark is trying to hang out with Lois. Lois is much nicer to Clark here than she is in the original comics. We get to see that sweet scene where Clark catches the bullet. And like I remember as a kid, the big line. I mean, I was only 2 years old when the movie came out, but I feel like we see commercials all the time. Maybe it was for like the made-for-TV. Oh, there's my dog. Where it's like, you've got me, who's got you? That is such a classic Superman the movie moment. We get the ripping of the shirt. We get the, hey man, and he goes, excuse me, that is one bad outfit. But we get the saving of Lois, the catching of the helicopter. All, again, this is 1978. Nowadays, everything is computers. They can make everything look perfect. Here, it's like they, with green screen or back projecting wires. I mean, it is, the big tagline was, you will believe a man can fly. And I'm sure, some of those shots are great because it's definitely him right there just taking off or landing. I mean, it's awesome to see. The whole thing with Clark, of course, I want to say this is a perfect movie. It's so close. The can you read my mind? And I know that's not how it happens. Like the music's playing and she goes, can you read my mind? It's a little corny, but come on. I mean, Clark loves Lois. This is the beginning of it. He's very like polite, and he's so goddamn charming as Superman. Like when he goes to talk to her, he's like, do you have a girlfriend? He goes, no, I don't, but when I do, you'll be the first to know about it. I was like, oh my God, even I'm panting like, ooh, my goodness, he's amazing. So we get that, like, it's just and then of course the big finale. Lex wants to set off a nuke at the San Andreas Fault to have half of California break off, and then all this desert becomes the new West Coast, and he owns all the land. La-di-da. Like, it is a classic, like, ridiculous, over-the-top scheme that he's going to use, and he wants to... So Superman has to stop that, and at the same time, Lex is trying to stop Superman. He does some of his... Gene Hackman is awesome in this with Ned Beatty, and I don't know the woman's name who played Miss Tessmacher. Like, his disdain for how dumb or how, just like airheadish they both are is like he is so good with just being such a dick to them. And I do like in different scenes he's got different hair and they show the wig, and like, Gene Hackman didn't want to shave his head, so I think they just gave him a bald wig, a bald cap for that last shot when he's in prison. But it was, I love that lair he has too, which is like, what is it, the underground old train station? He turns into a pool. I mean, that is so cool. But he does some sort of deduction. Now, Clark said too much. Like in the interview with Lois, he goes, I can't see through lead. And I was like, should you have said that? And I'm from the planet Krypton. Okay. But Clark, he says how old he was when he came to Earth, all these things. And Lex used that, or I mean, Superman said these things. Lex used that to figure out, well, I wonder if he came, so did meteorites. So let's look for meteorites that fell at that time. And I don't know why he figured out the molecular structure of these things would harm him. That was a little bit of a reach to me, or a little bit of an extra step. But again, he's Lex Luthor, and I'm more of an Otis kind of guy. So that's how they figure that out. They go, and they kind of drop a hint, like, I don't know why someone would break into a museum just to steal a meteorite. Well, now we know. And he puts it in a lead-lined box, and he tricks Superman. Again, I don't know how he used the dog whistle, literally, like the high pitch that only dogs can hear, and Superman. Don't know how he figured that out. But he teased Superman that he was going to release his gas. Superman goes to see him, and instead he tells him the plan and then shows him the kryptonite. And tries to kill him. He's like, you can't stop me. Miss Tessmacher lets him go. And, of course, he goes and stops the one missile first, but it doesn't make it in time for California. Now, this missile goes off. The dam breaks. Jimmy Olsen almost falls. Lois Lane gets crushed. He goes and freaks out, and then he just says, "Well, I'm going to fly backwards. He's going to spin the Earth. So he's going to fly so fast that the Earth spins, and he ends up flying backwards. The Earth ends up spinning backwards, and apparently, based on this logic, time is calculated, or time passes because the Earth spins. So that whole thing, the day the Earth stood still, does that mean that we'd stop aging? Because if that's the case, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I mean, I'd like to go back maybe about 10 years and maybe 20 years, and then stop it again. But obviously there's a little, I think people always want to complain about that part of the movie. Oh, Superman flew backwards, and then he turned and then the Earth spun backwards, and he turned back time so that he could save Lois. Now, here's the thing. What I was trying to figure out is how far back did he go? Because the water went back, the dam went back. So does that mean the missile? Where's the missile? That second missile? And did he go back so far that he didn't save the first missile? These are little things that like, if this movie came out today, friggin' internet would be jumping all over it, especially those Marvel jerks, those Marvel elitists, those Marvelitists, I call them. They'd be like, "Oh, see, Superman can't do that, blah, 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 blah." Who cares? So I'm assuming he just went back far enough to then run and save the missile. He didn't show it, but that's what he did, obviously. He saved the New York missile, the New Jersey one, flew to California, flew back just enough time that he could then jump up, get that California missile, but not so far that he didn't save the New York missile, New Jersey missile. I guess. I don't know. And then he's like, "All right, I need to, I'll be right back. Good to see you guys." I think he kisses Lois, or does he kiss her? He might, yes. And Lois has this thing, like, Jimmy Olsen shows up, and he's like, "It's so bad that Clark wasn't here." She's like, "Yeah, Clark's never here." Wait a second. Nah, it doesn't make any sense, and she doesn't think about it again. And then he flies. Next thing we see, he's at a prison dropping off Otis and Lex Luthor in the prison. And then they're like, "Thank you." He's like, "You don't have to thank me, or we're all on the same side." And he flies off. And then we get this cool shot where the music's playing, and he's flying like over the Earth. And he gives one like little, breaks the fourth wall, looks right into the camera with a nice smile. And I'm like, oh my God, that's Superman. And boom, that's the end. I mean, is it a perfect movie? No. Because of that little question there, I was talking to Chris, who is a co-host of my Fine Movies, Fine podcast, Fine Movies, Fine Spirits podcast, and he said there's some great moments and there's some slow moments in it. And I'm gonna say I love the beginning stuff. I love the Krypton stuff. I love the Smallville stuff. Nothing there felt, if it was slow, I don't know if that's what he meant. Obviously, the flying part was a little long. But what are you going to do? Clark's trying to get the girl, and he's going to do it as Superman, not as Clark. But I forget. And this is what I forget. So Clark flies into I don't remember this part at all. He flies into the clouds, and he hears Jor-El saying, "Don't interfere in human history." And we see Glenn Ford, Pa Kent saying, so Jor-El says that. Pa Kent says, "You're here for a reason," and Superman should be like, "Jor-El, I kind of just met you and you're a hologram. Pa Kent raised me to be here for people. I'm going to do what I can." And he's like, "Oh," and he thinks back to when his father died. I had all these powers and I couldn't do anything to save him. So that's when he goes nuts and flies around the Earth. And luckily it works. I mean, thank God. But I think there is a consequence to that. And I think that something to do with that consequence is how General Zod and his crew break out of the Phantom Zone and land on Earth for Superman 2. That would make sense if there is a consequence to this, because this was all planned. This was all, like, Superman 2 was being filmed at the same exact time. At the end of this movie, in the credits, it says, "Next year, Superman 2. Imagine that. I'd be like, "What? Another one next year? Yay! Yippee!" I'd stand up in the theater. I'd go, "Yippee! That's swell." But, of course, we know that Richard Donner was directing these at the same time, and I'm assuming at one point he was relieved from his duties with a lot of Superman 2 left to be done. Was it Richard Jenkins that they came in? He came in to finish it, and, you know, for years we heard about, before the Snyder Cut, we heard about the Donner Cut. And there is a Richard Donner Cut of Superman 2, and guess what? I've never seen it yet. And, of course, Richard Jenkins, I think, went on to do Superman 3, which still, when I was a kid, had one of the scariest moments I've ever had. Like, the thing that freaked me out as a kid. I can't wait to talk about it. But that's not today. Today is about 1978, Superman the movie. You will believe a man can fly. And I did. And I just thought they did a great job of making a superhero movie. Not a serial, not a silly thing, like doing it seriously, doing it with a big budget, and really, you know, with stars behind it. And that, you know, before Batman in 89, because, again, we didn't have much. It was just Superman. There weren't any big budget movies except the Superman movie, and they become less big budget as time went by. So I'd like to say the Superman kicked off the superhero era, but it really didn't, because nobody else gave a damn about any other superheroes for years until we got Batman 89. And that started, you think that would spawn things. It spawned some movies being made, but again, it still wasn't anything. Even Superman Returns comes out in 06, and nothing there. It wasn't until Marvel, and I don't want to give Marvel credit here, but it wasn't until Marvel said, we're going to start making movies, and then Disney got behind them, and the whole thing kicked off with the whole world, and then now DC's been trying to play catch-up ever since. And look, say what you want about these movies. I'm just lucky we have them as an option to see. You don't have to watch them. You don't have to like them. But the fact that they're there, and they're trying, and they're going to keep trying, and DC's going to keep trying and keep trying, I'm happy with it. I'm happy that we're at least getting something. Are we going to get a whole new Superman? Another new Superman? Or is it going to be an African-American? Well, African-American Kryptonian? I don't know what the hell you'd say. Black Superman? I don't care. Just bring it to me. Bring it to me. Give me more. I want it all. And then I'll decide if I like it or not. But I'd rather have it and say, didn't care for it all that much, than not have it and be like, oh, it's 1984 and Superman is fighting John Cryer. Again, I haven't seen Superman 4 in a long time. And I don't know if that was 1984 or not, but I've been rambling for a while now. I'm standing up now, and I'm leaning against this tree. You should see me. I look stunning. I got my first haircut in over a year. Now, I should say I've got my first real haircut, okay? I shaved my own head. I've had like little haircuts done at home that weren't, they were fine, but they weren't what I was accustomed to, getting a nice fade. So I went to a new place today, and this guy was like, fade around, and at one point takes out a straight edge razor and is like shaving the back of my head. I was like, this is crazy, but I love it, and I feel young. I feel, and then I start walking, and I'm like, oh, I'm not so young, but it's just a good day overall. It's a beautiful day here in Massachusetts, and I watched a wonderful Superman movie, and I can't wait to watch another one. But until I do, my friends, you know where to find me. You can find me on Twitter at Geek Mentality. The Facebook page is Fans Not Experts. I'm also on Instagram at Geek Mentality. I don't do a ton there, but it's there. But if you really want to follow me and my love of Superman on Instagram, I have another Instagram that I am pretty active in called Reaction Comics. That's for my Action Comics podcast. So check me out there as well. And until you hear from me again for Superman 2, my friends, or if you are a big fan, if you are a listener of Reaction Comics, you'll hear from me this Monday and every Monday. And movie month is right around the corner. Bing, bing, boom. I'm excited. I already have day one picked out. I can't wait. But until then, my friends, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for subscribing. I apologize for the bird and the dog, but no air conditioner. I promised you that. All right, my friends, until next time, here is my theme song, theme song, theme song, theme song. This is my podcast. I made it. Geek Mentality's what I named it. And I think you should listen and subscribe. 'cause I'm kinda funny and awesome. I think that I'm worth your time, and I'm kinda handsome. My mom says, please listen and please subscribe. At least listen to this episode.
Fans not experts.